So, Joe Rogan recently said this.
I know that they spent $251 million on transgender animal studies.
Let's look into it. First, I Googled this, and one of the top results led me to this Fox News article. This article is a summary of an exchange from a House Oversight Committee hearing. Also, the reported figure was $241 million, not 251. Now, I don't think $10 million is a big deal in this context, but numbers seem to matter to Joe, so let's chase down every last penny. Now, I don't care what the Fox article says, so I just went straight to the committee hearing, which was called Transgender Lab Rats and Poisoned Puppies: Oversight of Taxpayer-Funded Animal Cruelty. That sounds insane. So I watched this hearing, and I read the written testimony of the witnesses. The figure of $241 million being spent on transgender animal studies came from this guy. This guy is Justin Goodman. He's the senior vice president of an organization called the White Coat Waste Project. I won't wax long about his organization, but for context, they are a right-wing NGO with, let's say, dubious motivations. So here's the document of their written testimony. Now, for a 10-page document, they only actually mention transgender once, and it's in reference to this quote. We've also recently identified over $240 million in NIH grants for transgender animal experiments, including $26 million in active funding. And because that is exactly what we're here for, I went down to the citation, and it brought me to this article. This is an article from the Washington Examiner titled, Biden Administration Spent Millions Creating Transgender Animals to Experiment On. So, this article is the citation that the White Coat Waste Project used for their $241 million claim. And yet, this article only claims $10 million being spent to make animals transgender. That's quite the discrepancy. So where is the Washington Examiner getting this figure? Lucky for us, they link to a document, and that document is compiled by none other than the White Coat Waste Project. So let's get this straight. The White Coat Waste Project is testifying before Congress, and they're saying that the Biden administration spent $241 million to make animals transgender. Their source is a right-wing tabloid that not only doesn't mention the $241 million figure, but relies on the White Coat Waste Project's own documentation to demonstrate $10 million for funding transgender animal studies. To clarify, the claim that the White Coat Waste Project is making has no evidence. There is no evidence of $240 million being spent to make animals transgender. The only number that they can provide is 24 times smaller. The difference between the actual number and the reported number is less than the discrepancy made by Joe Rogan's faulty memory. To put this into even greater perspective, the NIH has an annual budget of $48 billion. $10 million is 0.02% of the overall budget. Except these studies are undertaken over several years. So let's do some rough math and take the average duration of these studies, which is 4 years. That's 2.5 million per year, which would be 0.005% of the NIH's annual budget, going to make animals transgender. Except, if you didn't figure out that these people are liars by now, these studies aren't about performing sex change surgeries on donkeys and mice like they would have you believe. In fact, the largest study cited, coming in at $3 million, isn't even focused on the trans population, but seeks to understand why women are more prone to asthma. Now, if you don't have any guesses, it's because of the presence of estrogen in their body, which is why the study abstract makes one singular mention of transgender women right at the end, because they also have high levels of estrogen in their bodies. This is just good health science. The claim that the government is performing sex change operations on animals is completely unfounded. Researchers studying the effects of hormones will necessarily need to manipulate the hormone levels of their subjects. And everybody has hormones. This research benefits everybody. The right wing of the government is skating down this slippery slope to equate normal health studies to HRT to gender reassignment surgery. They're doing this maliciously. And the worst part is the disdain with which these lunatics bemoan the poor taxpayers who are funding these experiments for the yucky trans people. What they fail to realize is that trans people are also taxpayers. Even if the NIH did spend the full $241 million that they claim on transgender health studies, which they didn't, so what? This is America. You can hate trans people if you want. It's a free country. But they're living here. And living in a free and just society means that even the people you hate are entitled to representation. When I'm presented with what I think is an irredeemably crazy person, I always stop and ask myself, are they doing this for money? And the answer is almost always yes. The congressional member presiding over this hearing was Nancy Mace. Nancy Mace is a right-wing virtue signaler. She's taken on the role of culture warrior against trans people, because it's what keeps her name in the news. But what is she doing with this hearing? Now, clearly she wants to stop animal testing. But why? Is her concern with ending animal cruelty, or is she being a good Republican lapdog and trying to slash $20 billion in health studies? That certainly seems to be the goal of the White Coat Waste Project. These guys are not PETA. They only oppose government-funded animal labs, but don't concern themselves with animal testing in the private sector. So who is funding them? Is it big business who wants to privatize a $20 billion industry? Is it right-wingers who want to slash federal spending for tax breaks? I'm genuinely asking. These people are opaque. They use animal rights as a smokescreen to hide whatever their political motives are. Their true objective is just to end animal studies, but they did lie to the tune of $241 million in order to push this objective. And of course, this fed into Fox News' business model of taking the most outlandish and ridiculous lies and blasting them to anybody who will listen, because Fox profits off of fear and anger and hatred. It gets them views, which sells more ads, which trickles down into social media grifters who do the exact same thing. So where does Joe Rogan fit in with all of this? For Joe, he isn't going to do 12 hours of research into this like I am. He's an out-of-touch comedian. He's going to misremember the title of a Fox article that one of his Twitter followers reposted, which quotes a lying lobbyist with no evidence. And Joe's going to spout it off to millions of people, because his political ideology is, I just want to say retard, man. Well, buddy, do I have good news for you. You can reclaim that word, because a rich man selling out his fellow Americans for a 1980s insult is retarded.